I made some mistakes and now I'm sleeping in my ex-husband's living room. Now, this is not a Reddit story. This story was actually sent in through my form by one of you, and your name is Christina. The last 4 years kicked my butt. I'm nearly homeless. Now I'm sleeping in my ex-husband's dining room. I made a lot of mistakes and hope that other people can hear this and learn from them. I, 53 female, feel like I've been living through a personal apocalypse for the last few years. Fun fact, I could never say that word before. I kept saying apocalypse, like my whole life. The first crisis that dropped was in 2021 with the end of my marriage. But first, a little context on the years leading up to this. I had known my husband for 5 years before we dated. And we dated for 2 years before moving in together and lived together for a year before becoming engaged. We were engaged for 2 more years before getting married. On our wedding day, we had been on a 10-year journey from meeting to marriage, so I thought I knew my husband well. I had genuine periods of true happiness. However, because of that, I failed to notice that slowly over the next decade, my ex-husband used psychological and emotional manipulation and weaponized incompetence to slowly wear me down. Once we were married, he used financial control tactics to further tear me down to a point of my complete mental and physical breakdown. I was under his control, and because the memory of prior happiness was so strong, I was drinking a hot cup of Delulu every day. Ooh, Delulu can be a dangerous game. I thoroughly gaslighted myself as much as he did. I spent most of our marriage trying to figure out why I increasingly felt so unseen. It's also important to note that even though I'm not religious, though I am a woo-woo spiritual, I don't know what that means, I consider marriage to be a sacred contract. I had thought I was in a ride or die relationship and that he would be my forever person. At the time, I held tightly to the hope that he would have a wake-up call, that we would find our way through therapy to overcome our mounting resentments and behavioral problems and find our way back to joy together again soon. On May 17th, 2021, I was blindsided by a series of suspicious DMs that ended up being from my husband's mistress of 2 years. It was like my brain glitched and refused to comprehend what I was reading. I didn't think that my husband, of all people, would be capable of cheating, much less maintain the lies necessary to have an affair for years. Now, normally, I would give the other person the benefit of the doubt and blame the cheater for 100% of that betrayal. However, in reading her messages, she admitted that she knew he was married the whole time. She gave me a long list of complaints that my husband had about me. It was all news to me. He never once said any of those things to my face. I considered the fact that she could be lying, but the personal details couldn't have come from anyone else but him. He hadn't been honest with me about his true feelings. All the while, he was telling me everything was fine. I don't understand what leads a man to hold in his feelings and think it's easier to find someone else rather than just talking with his wife. For several years, I had been begging him to talk to me because I could sense that he was unhappy and I wanted us to go to therapy. I got the uncanny sense that she enjoyed telling me everything that my husband hated about me. I cannot describe the shock I felt, for multiple reasons. The guy I loved wasn't who I thought he was and only wore a mask. It was diabolical. And as it turned out, he chose the worst person possible to have an affair with. He essentially not only betrayed my trust with his lies, but he painted a target on my back for years to come. About his mistress. She turned out to have a violent criminal record. Oh, that's concerning. And was cyberstalking me all throughout their relationship, both prior and after our divorce. This went on for a total of 4 years. Towards the end of their relationship in 2023, she tried to stab my ex-husband. Now, I know he's a cheater, but we don't wish that upon him. She was absolutely unhinged. Oh, I think that's a nice word to use, unhinged. I have a few other ones up here, but I'm gonna keep them to myself. I became paranoid that she had other means of watching me outside of social media. You probably should. However, as far as I can tell, her stalking never escalated beyond creeping me on the internet, since I have no proof. She seemed to have uncanny knowledge about my life, however. Anyway, it's obvious that when I found out about his affair and realized how long he had been telling these calculated lies, I could not unknow that information. I decided to file for divorce in December of 2021. In retrospect, I wish I had gone for a separation first before negotiating a divorce settlement, because I later learned that he lied about his income and I gave him far too much just to be rid of him without fully understanding the financial ramifications that would have on my life. I had been a stay-at-home spouse for multiple reasons, but his lack of reciprocal effort in domestic matters was the primary contributing factor. I also had been overwhelmed by trying to work full-time and care for my elderly mother for years prior to giving up my job. The point is that my career had a big old 10-year gap. At a critical age in my late 30s, for the sake of keeping the peace at home, I put all my proverbial eggs in one basket and put my faith in a man who promised to take care of me as I fulfilled my family obligations and cared for our home. I have seen that happen far too many times. And that is personally why a personal choice that I will never financially depend on anybody. And hey, that is not for everyone, okay? I am not shaming you by any means. Just me. I only find peace within when I can financially care for myself and keep some independence. For me. Spoiler alert, he didn't take care of me. I was slowly acclimated to a lesser quality of life than what I had prior to our marriage. In the beginning, I was the better saver, and I was fortunate enough to save some money, but all of that was slowly sucked away by his recklessness on financial matters during our marriage. Now, I have no retirement fund anymore, other than minimal social security, which has less than 30 years of work history in it currently. I'm still hurting emotionally, but now the added financial stress has added insult to injury, especially since he is now well off and thus still benefiting from having had my support over the years. Despite me not working, I did have some financial windfalls from time to time. However, my money had all gone to his education and the advancement of his career, cleaning up his credit, etc. This is so painful to hear. I mistakenly invested in another person's development, thinking we were life partners. But he never reciprocated when I needed it. You know, they always say the person you marry is not the person you divorce. I hadn't realized how much health was affected. This is relevant because it speaks to the extent of my ex's neglect and why I have difficulty earning income now. I have developed multiple chronic illnesses since I stopped working in 2013. I have had some symptoms starting in 2010, but didn't realize what was happening until much later. Some of this is undoubtedly genetic and triggered by age, but a lot of my illnesses were aggravated by neglect from my husband. In addition to, and perhaps because of, my physical ailments, I stopped feeling safe in public. My fatigue was getting so bad, I became afraid that I would collapse randomly while trying to run errands. I had developed agoraphobic anxiety. I have never heard of that. Who's surprised though? That's a big word. I had to rely on my strategically incompetent husband to go to the grocery store. Despite my providing him with a list that included pictures of what I needed him to buy, he almost never brought home produce. For context, he had the taste buds of a 9-year-old, so everything he bought was to his preference and highly processed, which aggravated my hypertension, inflammation, and caused pre-diabetes. I gained a bunch of weight due to hormonal changes and a lack of support for my chronic pain and limited access to healthy options. Incidentally, a friend of mine later told me that she overheard him telling someone that he was trying to make me fat on purpose so that no one else would want me? That's bizarre. I gaslighted myself into self-blame since I was still eating whatever he gave me for the short-term dopamine. This damaged my health in the long term. I have since had weight loss surgery and I am no longer obese. However, despite that, I'm now fully disabled, waiting for my approval on my SSDI. He also rightfully had VA coverage due to his service-related injuries. However, during our marriage, I went for long stretches without health coverage because he said it was too expensive to buy on the exchange when his employers didn't provide it. Later, during the pandemic, I eventually got Medicare due to the expansion, and he claimed that his local VA doctors were overbooked. He got compactors, massages, acupuncture, etc. on a weekly basis through the VA to treat his chronic back problems. This is relevant because this was the time that he used as an excuse to come home really late. He would, so he claimed, have to drive long distances to go to a VA contracted doctor. He claimed that his appointments would have a long waiting period before he was called in. He claimed that he stopped somewhere for food while waiting for the doctor because he would get hungry. This was to explain why he had leftovers for us to share. At the time, I was grateful for this because he would bring home healthier options, like grilled chicken and salads and sometimes fish tacos. It was a welcome change to the fast food he would usually bring me. I ate this food not knowing that it was leftovers from his date table with his mistress. That is diabolical. Once I had learned that he was having an affair and I connected the dots, I could no longer delude myself into thinking that relationship was redeemable. I had already tolerated so much that was deplorable, and I still kick myself for being so blind. All the time, he had been putting all the affection and consideration that I needed into his affair partner instead of his wife. I wanted out of our marriage and I walked away with nothing that would remind me of the life I had been building with him for the previous 20 plus years. I couldn't afford an attorney on my own, so I did a DIY divorce. Oh no. I should have gone to legal aid. I think if I had a good divorce lawyer, they could have considered all the long-term effects of ending my marriage under my specific circumstances. This is very useful for people, you know? I'm sorry that it's at your expense, but lessons could be learned here, right? After I found out about the affair, I enrolled online in trade school prior to filing for divorce. However, I underestimated how hard it would be to start over. I managed to get through my first year of school for the rest of 2021. At the same time, I had to pack up our home with no help from him and sell it. Losing the home that I loved so much hurt for multiple reasons. I grew up in foster care, so having a safe, stable home is very important to me. I had savings and a modest spousal support. I thought that would be enough to get me started on rebuilding my life. However, during the course of 2022, in my second year, I struggled with my class schedule. My pain and fatigue, along with other symptoms, were making it hard to practice. I realized that the cost of trade school was becoming unaffordable. My student loan debt had been piling up for those 2 years. I had to come to terms with the fact that my chronic illnesses were progressive. We're going to take a little hydration station break before we continue, so grab your beverage of choice. Cheers. It would take me 3 times as long to finish the program, and there was no guarantee that I would be able to achieve the speed and accuracy needed to pass the qualifiers. In 2023, I reluctantly quit trade school and began to work on a Plan B for my new life alone. I plan to fall back on a freelance work, driving my car via delivery and ride-sharing apps. I was still struggling to find my new normal after so many years letting my husband dictate the course of my life. Little did I know that 2023 would become by far my toughest year of this saga. It gets worse. On June 6, 2023, the next crisis dropped. An uninsured driver rear-ended me. I was alone in my car because I had not started working. I wasn't seriously injured, thank Jeebus, but my car had considerable damage. Oh my God, and that's your means of work. I'm just piecing that together. It took until October of 2023 to have my own insurance to fix my car. And for the reasons that you'll read below, I could not afford the deductible at the time. I had to beg my ex-husband to help me. He did eventually, but it was humiliating to have to ask. This car accident left me without transportation for 4 months, and my desperate job and my desperate job hunt slowed to a crawl. Between mid-June 2023 and August 2023, I fell victim to fraud. Not once, but twice. I was scammed out of a total of $33,000. Oh my gosh. I was so embarrassed over the span of those 2 months. I lost all my savings in a 1-2 punch. My data had been compromised and sold on the dark web, and they were using it effectively to rob a vulnerable person. On July 17th, 2023, I had major stomach surgery for my obesity. It took me longer than normal to recover due to autoimmune issues that caused a lot of inflammation. I also developed post-surgical depression, which caused my slow recovery. My lease would expire that month, and I wasn't sure if I could continue paying rent at my current rate. My alimony wasn't enough to cover my basic living expenses. But what happened next broke me. Girl, how are you not broken already? This is insane. On July 27th, 2023, my brother called me and informed me that my son from a previous relationship, had passed away. No. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. I would cry if this was just a Reddit story, but the fact that it's one of you guys, oh my God, no. It was only 3 months shy of his 32nd birthday. I'm 32. All color and meaning drained out of my world. And if I'm honest, it hasn't come back yet. On August 9th, 2023, Crisis 4 happened with the second scam, and thus all the money I had left in the world was gone. Since leaving my husband, I hadn't been able to establish any other reliable source of income on my own, and I felt so defeated. All the resources that I could have saved for myself, I had to give to my husband during our marriage, and he never paid me back. At that time, my car was still in the shop without transportation and my savings. I didn't know how I would pay my rent for September. So I did the only thing I could do, and I called my landlord and tearfully explained what had happened. Hot with shame, I gave 30-day notice, and she kindly let me have 60 days. September 2023, I packed up everything I had and I put it into storage. I told my ex-husband what was happening. He said that he would cover the cost of the storage unit as a way of repaying a loan that I had given to him years prior. I was prepared to give my cat to him, and when my car repairs were done, I resolved to sleep in my car. I felt like such a loser. You're not a loser. But as I talked to my ex-husband, he admitted that he had just bought another house. How? He hadn't been making the aforementioned loan payments because he said his hours had been cut, and he tied himself to a mortgage. You guessed it. It turned out to be a lie. He was shorting the monthly payments that he owed me so that he could pay a down payment for his house. His new home was 90 miles away, far from my friends and emotional support system, but I reluctantly accepted his offer. What other choice did I have? My ex-husband seems nice for offering me a place to stay, right? The dark truth is, he knows this is a good social PR for him. He made a point of telling me and anyone else who would listen that he didn't want me to sleep on the street. How kind of him. I get it, but I am happy you're not sleeping on the street. In November 2023, I moved myself, our cat, and my suitcase into his house. I continued to pay down my debt with reduced alimony. Since I was living at his house, he held back a portion for rent and utilities. And I applied for social services since it was clear that I could no longer work enough hours to support myself, and finding a part-time job that was flexible enough to accommodate my chronic illnesses seemed impossible. I found out that his income had been at 6 figures during the last 3 years of our marriage, when he had been telling me that it was in the mid-5 all along. I can't help but think he did this not only to prioritize his own desires, but also to ensure my failure. I have been uncomfortably sleeping in his open concept dining room. I have no privacies, and I can't say that I'm emotionally safe here. He hasn't cleaned his house once since I moved in, and he doesn't cook. By default, all that labor still falls on me simply because I exist in that space. If I want to eat anything other than fast food, I must cook. I'm relying on SNAP food stamps, and he always helps himself to a plate. I'm not on the street, so I'm grateful. However, the nuance to this dynamic is that we have a history that shaped this outcome. A huge power imbalance where he has had all the benefit and I had little to show for my contributions. Seeing the remnants of a life that I helped build but can no longer be a part of still hurts deeply. I have my eye on a mobile home that has a low fixed income friendly financing. This mobile home will be a true godsend for me. The plot rental and mortgage combined are still far less per month than rent for a studio apartment. I need a little help to regain a sense of stability. The reason I'm not doing this anonymously is because I hope that you will add my GoFundMe link included at the bottom in the comments of your video if you choose to read this on your channel. My hope is to move out of my ex-husband's dining room by August of 2025. Stability and taking care of my health are my top priorities. Holy moly, is that a story? My head hurts for you, in all honesty. The amount of pain and chaos that you have been through is insane. And honestly, this just reminds me of the purpose that I have here with my channel. And with, the small platform that I have in my little corner of the world. I will in fact be posting the GoFundMe page link in the description below. There is no obligation, of course, for you guys to donate. I know that everyone struggles financially and has their own stuff going on, but if you can donate, I'm sure anything will help. And there's also on GoFundMe, they have words of encouragement support that you can at least write. If you can't donate money, you can write, and I'm sure you, Christina, would greatly appreciate this. So let's all rally together because we are all family here in whatever way you can. And of course, I will also be helping. So thank you for sharing that all with us. And I hope things turn around for you. I like from the bottom of my heart. Stay classy out there, stay safe, and stay sassy. I'll see you guys